This is TWiT.
Apple announced the iPhone 16e to go along with the iPhone 16 lineup. And this is, in theory, Apple's affordable phone. Can you tell us first and foremost about price and kind of initial specs and understanding of or initial reactions of what this device is?
Sure. The iPhone 16e is affordable. It replaces the iPhone SE third generation and the iPhone 14 in Apple's current iPhone lineup. And so the SE3 was the old iPhone 8 design with Touch ID, the home button, big bezels and everything, no Face ID. And that cost $429 most recently. The iPhone 16e is a bit more expensive at $599 and up. But you've got more storage and you've got a whole lot more features, including Face ID and this full screen display with no home button, better camera system, a lot more battery life. So it's more expensive, but you get sort of a 5 or 6 year generational leap in terms of what technology is being offered there.
That makes sense. That, when we compare it to the SE of yesteryear, this phone starts to make a lot more sense versus kind of comparing it as the affordable model to go with the other models that exist, where then people kind of are going, okay, but I will be honest with you. I said this on my show yesterday, that when I first saw the phone and I saw it had one camera lens on it, my initial thought was like, oh, wow, that reminds me of an iPad, and iPad camera equals ugh. And so I suddenly was starting to feel a type of way about this phone before I had to sort of step back and go, okay, hold on, let's take a second to think about this. With this phone, we do have an action button. Do we get the capture button on this little baby?
There's no camera control. There is the action button. And one thing that it does on the iPhone 16e is you have this Apple Intelligence AI feature called Visual Intelligence. On the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro, where this feature originated, you use the capture button, the camera control, you hold it down, and it opens up this mode where you can scan objects, images, or things in your real world environment, and you can look up things about those on Google or ChatGPT, or even like translate something or add it to your calendar. This is available on the iPhone 16e through that action button. So you do lose the ability to assign that action button to something else, or you can use it. You can access it from the control center. And those two features are being backported to the iPhone 15 Pro, which has Apple Intelligence, but not Visual Intelligence because there's no camera control. Something else about the iPhone 16 I should mention is that even though it's not affordable compared to, or it's not, as good of a value compared to the iPhone SE generation, which was usually, $430 or $500, it is, affordable compared to the iPhone 16, which is $800 and up, or the iPhone 16 Pro, which is $1,000 and up. So you're looking at a $200 and $400 difference there.
Makes sense. Now, one thing that stood out to me initially was the lack of MagSafe wireless charging in the device. And initially, that alone kind of felt a little surprising to me. But on 9to5Mac, something else was pointed out, which is that you lose MagSafe charging, but you also lose MagSafe in terms of accessories. And I have to say, with my phone, I'm used to thwacking it all over the place. Like right now, it's on, it's technically a charger, but even if there wasn't a charger here, I just like to have it sort of magnetically placed there. I know a lot of people do it in the car. Any insight into the lack of MagSafe here? Is it just a cost thing? What do we think?
It must just be a cost thing. And, one theory was Apple's using their own modem now. They're replacing Qualcomm modems with their own C1 modem in the iPhone 16e. It's the first time they're using an Apple modem. And so, my first guess was maybe the magnet interferes with the modem. That could be an issue. Maybe there's not enough space to sort of separate the magnet from the modem. But I don't really think that's the problem. And Apple even said today that that's not why they didn't include MagSafe. They didn't say why they didn't include it, though. One thing that we're seeing, though, is that accessory makers like Spigen, for example, they're making cases that have MagSafe magnets so that you can do things like attach a wallet or a pop socket, holder, for example. What you won't get is, probably is that wireless charging that MagSafe offers. So it does have wireless charging, the old Qi standard, where it's just wireless, but not the new Qi 2 or what Apple made with MagSafe back in the iPhone 12 days, which is it snaps into place magnetically and it charges efficiently, giving you faster wireless charging speeds. So it's a very weird omission, but it's one that you can sort of overlook when you look at what else you get with the iPhone 16e, especially the newer processor and the more RAM that supports Apple Intelligence and other new features.
You wrote an article for 9 to 5 Mac, and it was kind of interestingly entitled something along the lines of "Don't buy this phone," and you're going, "Which phone is Zach talking about?"
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your insights there? I want people to go and read it, so we'll link to it in the show notes. Sorry, Anthony, I did not drop that in, but yeah, is it the 16e you're talking about?
It's not the 16e, sort of surprisingly. It's the iPhone. I'll just give it away here. It's the iPhone 15. And the reason for that is the Apple lineup right now for the iPhone includes, since the SE3 and 14 went away yesterday, it includes the iPhone 15 and then iPhone 16e, 16, and 16 Pro. And you think, okay, that's least expensive to most expensive. But in fact, the 16e is $100 less than the 15. But you get more hardware oomph with the 16e. You get a sort of 2-year generationally new chip, and you get more RAM than you get in the 15. So my advice for anyone buying a new iPhone in 2025 is, if you're looking at the 15, you probably don't want a 16 or 16 Pro. You probably should look at the 16e instead. And I think the E is a little confusing. It's like, what does that mean? And for all intents and purposes, it's an SE4. It's an older design. It's this year's hardware and an older design that Apple will probably sell for the next few years without updating it. But I think it's a better value than the 15, because the 15 does cost $100 more now, and will probably lose iOS support maybe a year or two before the 16e does. Years down the road.
Absolutely. The one thing that I've heard people talking about is with the SE, you have ambiguity because it's not tied to a number. Do you think there's anything to that in terms of this now being a 16e? Will we then see 17e, 18e, or is it more likely that in the lineup, I mean, Apple's still selling older models of iPhone, this just becomes that model that is the lower cost model? Because you even mentioned there, you see that it probably is going to exist for a few years.
Yeah, I think so. I think we won't see a 17E or an 18E. Maybe we'll never even see another E. We've had one-off iPhone versions that are sort of the cheaper, more affordable model, the iPhone 5C and the iPhone 10R. So C and R, only one versions of each of those phones. So we could only have one C. But I think what's nice here is it is sort of clever marketing to frame it as the 16E, because it has the internals of a 16 for the most part. Mm-hmm. In the past, like the original iPhone SE was the shape of an iPhone 5 or 5S, but it had the internals of an iPhone 6S. So there was only kind of a 2-year gap there. But Apple kept it around for 2 or 3 years before making it look like an iPhone 8. And it was sort of hard to track then. It is the SE1, SE2, SE3. What are those phones? And by saying 16E, it makes it feel newer than the 15, much newer than the 11 through 14. And we'll be able to keep track of it easier in the future too. Oh, it's like the 16E is less than the 17, less than the 18, while those phones are sold next to it, I believe.
Absolutely. To round things out, I'd love to hear your take on like who exactly the phone is for, and maybe you can give us some understanding of availability and when people can take a look at this phone and have it in their hands, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So I think the iPhone 16e, again, if you're looking at the iPhone 15 as an option, maybe look at the 16e instead because of the longevity it will offer. But if you're currently an iPhone SE user of any sort, or use an iPhone 11 or iPhone 12 or 12 mini, then I think Apple is especially looking at you because they've got all these different comparisons in terms of battery life and performance on their website and in their press release that shows just how much better the 16e is compared to those phones. And I imagine if you've got maybe a 13 or a 14, then you may be holding out more now, or more likely to go to a plain old iPhone 16. But yeah, if you've got a 12 mini or a 12 or older, then this 16e I think is probably a pretty good bet for you. And the pricing starts at $599. Pre-sale is available. Pre-orders start tomorrow and Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern time. And the phone starts to ship 1 week later. So next Friday, it'll start to arrive in stores and reach customers.
Thanks so much for watching this little chunk of Tech News Weekly. If you'd like to get the full episode, well, head over to twit.tv/TNW. There you'll find buttons you can click or tap to subscribe to the entire show in audio and video formats. Or just look in the description. We've got links down there as well.